Good morning. I'm State Representative Kristin Phillips-Hill from the 93rd Legislative District in Southern York County. In a world where internet availability is a staple of the learning process, in the most rural state in the nation, many people don't realize Pennsylvania is the most rural state in the nation. We have more people living in rural areas than any other state. Many of our students struggle because they lack internet access at home. Not just our students, our emergency responders, telemedicine, small businesses, farmers. Remember, even in this day and age, we have cows that wear Fitbits, communicating to their farmer information essential for their care. 2 years ago, I was made aware of residents in a portion of my district who were driving to the Southeastern School District parking lot so that their students, their children, could access the district's Wi-Fi, just to get their homework done. I then began initiating conversations as part of my investigation, and I wrote a column in December of 2016 for the York Sunday News entitled "Closing Pennsylvania's Digital Divide." It reviewed promises that were made and promises that were broken by companies who years ago pledged to make high-speed internet available to everyone in the Commonwealth. It didn't take long to discover the lack of access to adequate broadband internet is not only an impediment to our students. It impedes economic opportunities for our rural small businesses, as well as the agriculture industry, emergency service providers, and residents seeking access to telemedicine services. It also didn't take long to hear from citizens and colleagues in the General Assembly, both inside and outside of York County, rural, urban, and suburban, who were well aware of the problem. In the General Assembly, strength in numbers is a key to solving problems and getting legislation done. And it wasn't hard to find a colleague equally as committed to solving the problem. I've partnered with Democrat State Representative Pam Snyder, who serves the Commonwealth's three most southwestern counties, Fayette, Greene, and Washington. Her district is more rural than mine, and it's peppered with holes in the alleged blanket of internet coverage. Together, we have authored and introduced a 4-bill package of legislation last year that would do the following. First, it would conduct an in-depth investigation and audit into the compliance of non-rural telecommunication carriers with Act 67 of 1993 and Act 183 of 2004. It would establish a special bipartisan bicameral legislative commission to recommend improvements to the deployment of high-speed broadband services in underserved and unserved areas. It would inventory all State Department agency, commission, or institution-owned communication towers, poles, buildings, and facilities to leverage existing state-owned assets for the provisioning of high-speed broadband internet to unserved and underserved areas. And lastly, it would audit the Pennsylvania Department of Education's administration of the E-Fund, a 6-year education technology program that was to address network modernization plans. The handout that you have further details the legislation and where the bills are in the legislative process. Additionally, Representative Snyder and I hosted a meeting with representatives of the Microsoft Corporation to make clear to them that Pennsylvania is interested in participating in their plan to close the internet gap by bringing broadband connectivity to 2 million people in rural America by 2022. Going back to the legislation, what I can tell you is that one of the resolutions, the one with regard to the E-Fund, will move out of the House Education Committee in April, as will the bill that would address the existing state infrastructure assets that's in the House State Government Committee, as well as the commission to look at what we can do to further assist rural Pennsylvanians in accessing high-speed internet in their communities. We have received a commitment from our leader, Dave Reed, to move those bills as soon as they come out of committee. So getting back to Microsoft, while Pennsylvania was not included in the latest group of a dozen states that Microsoft is pushing high-speed internet to, we want Pennsylvania to be at the head of the line for the next opportunity to partner with them should the plan be successful and subsequently expanded. And for those of you who don't really know what Microsoft is doing, when your television channels went to digital, it left space on the spectrum, white space, that's not being used to transmit or communicate. Microsoft is using that space on the spectrum to push high-speed internet into rural areas. And so we would like to see that space used in that fashion to provide more access to rural Pennsylvanians and people across the Commonwealth and the country. So as I mentioned, this is also a key issue for Pennsylvania's farmers, and that's why I eagerly accepted an invitation in January to be part of a panel discussion on broadband internet access at the Pennsylvania Farm Show. While the time was well spent, during that panel, I was disappointed to hear that a representative of Governor Tom Wolf's administration tell the panel that the problem would be looked into during the governor's second term in office, as in next year at the earliest. I can tell you that my response was, I really don't think that we can afford to wait. Rural Pennsylvanians have waited too long. So Representative Snyder and I, as well as millions of Americans and Pennsylvanians who are impacted by this issue, we're really glad that Governor Wolf is moving up his timetable. It's hard to grow your economy when you are the most rural state in the country and you have a business unfriendly reputation. We have overly burdensome taxes, we have overly burdensome regulations, and we have infrastructure that doesn't work. It's not exactly rolling the red carpet out to Pennsylvania businesses. So this four-bill package of legislation is going to bring Pennsylvania into the 21st century. I'm very excited that our committee chairmen and leaders are willing to advance this essential legislation. And I think there's a couple of things that I would close on. One is that we have to be mindful of the cost. We really are looking at free market solutions that empower businesses to provide this service in a way that is friendly to the taxpayer. And also, we understand that the federal government is looking at providing these resources to states. Representative Snyder and I are already talking about how we push federal resources out in a way that gets us the most for that money. And we're looking at, public-private partnerships and establishing criteria so that it works. We always have to be efficient, effective, and fiscally responsible with taxpayer resources, both at the federal and the state level, and that's what we're endeavoring to do today. I thank you so much for being here. I'm very willing to take any of your questions. Yes?
What's the timeline that you're looking for to get all this through?
So based on my conversations early this morning, we are looking at April. We'll be back in session for 2 weeks in April, and that will be the time frame to get this done. Thank you. Thank you very much.